Welcome to the Happy Rebel podcast, where we explore the realms of finding your calling, living your values, and doing the work of self-healing. Through candid conversations with fellow seekers, we'll uncover ideas and concepts that challenge, expand, and empower us to embrace our authentic selves and live with intention. Hi there, I'm Kelly Street, owner of Happy Rebel and your guide on this journey. I'm known for my insatiable curiosity and tendency for pushing boundaries. I've always been a challenger, eager to question the status quo and explore the uncharted territories of personal growth. So join me as we navigate the twists and turns of life's journey, seeking out the wisdom and insights that illuminate our path towards fulfillment and rebellion against the ordinary. Before we get started, I want to remind you to connect with me on Instagram at Happy Rebel, where you can ask questions and share your thoughts. Remember, you are never alone on your path to becoming a happy rebel. This is the Happy Rebel Podcast. As we enter this sacred space of the Happy Rebel Podcast, I invite you to either gently focus your eyes, or if possible, allow your eyes to be fully closed. Take a deep, cleansing breath and exhale to ground into your body. Inhale deeply, visualizing a golden light in your heart center. With each exhale, imagine that you are releasing anything that no longer serves you. Continuing to inhale and exhale in your own time, preparing your body, your mind, and your soul to embrace the duality of life. In this space, we balance between the light and the dark, the challenges and the victories. We recognize that growth comes from our rebellion against the ordinary. Continuing to breathe deeply, remembering that you are not alone on this journey. With gratitude for this moment of grounding and connection, coming back into the space, opening your eyes, prepared to embark on this podcast adventure. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me and being willing to talk and share and tell me a little bit more about yourself as well as anybody else who's listening. So why don't we start with you just sharing who you are in the world, or what you want people to know about you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm excited to have this conversation. I am a teacher. I do healing work, somatic work. I've been doing this work professionally for about 15 years, but it's really been a lifelong journey. And my work really centers around bringing people home into their bodies. And that can mean so many things: home to their sexuality, their sensuality, their creative energy, their heart, their intuition. So I work a lot with various modalities to bring that home, both in the physical, tangible, kind of gross realm, as well as the subtle, cosmic, spiritual realms. I really love weaving both. So
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, and you do it so well. And full disclosure, I always like to note this if I speak to someone on the podcast who I've worked with, that I've worked with you, and so I can speak to the, how do I say this? You really do work in both those physical and subtle realms that you talked about, and just kind of combining all of these different things that you've learned and all the tools in your toolkit, all those different things in your background that come together and just make for a really, really beautiful practice in working with you. So just wanted to name that.
Thank you.
So I want to start with, you've been doing this work for 15 years. I want to start with, what did you do? Who were you before that?
Well, let's see. So I guess I'll start with formal training. I went to the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. I graduated with an English literature, poetry focus, as well as Italian studies. So, very useful degrees in the real world. So I've been a writer my whole life. That's kind of one of my first loves. And then just had, kind of random college jobs, through college. And then even in the years following, I was a glass blower for a couple years. And then, had always been deep into yogic practice and meditation and healing work. I sort of grew up in that realm. And so it was always second nature. kind of pushed it away in my like teenage years and stuff. And then after college, just kind of didn't know what to do with a poetry degree, first of all. And so, had been on my own healing journey. So eventually just the work that I do now was second nature.
Oh my gosh, of course you were a glass blower. I have this like intense fascination with glass blowing, and just a quick story. So I love the show Blown Away on Netflix. It's, glass blowing TV competition TV show.
Oh,
It's
don't
so
know about
cool.
this.
Okay, you should
Okay.
definitely check it
Good
out.
to know. Noted. Thank you.
It's great. And in one of the very first episodes, they were, doing their first competition and blowing glass and doing all that stuff. And the guy gets almost finished with his piece and it falls off and it breaks on the floor.
Oh,
And you just see like the totality of emotions go through him in the seconds after that happens. Anger,
mm.
sadness, fear, devastation, like everything. And then he takes a deep breath and he relaxes, and someone else comes on, another one of the glass blowers, and says, "You learn really early on in glass blowing that you can't be precious about things. Glass breaks. That's what happens."
Yeah.
And I hold that with me. And so I'm not at all surprised that you are a glass blower, because I think you hold that energy of like, yeah, you
Mm.
have to have some destruction to get some beautiful pieces in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so unpredictable. I mean, you can fire. I worked with hard glass, and so hard glass, especially because you have to put it in the kiln, and you can't see where like the heat lines are in the glass, like and where those heat lines are, where there's a big differential between hot and cold. It's weak, and it's kind of a toss up, whether or not the piece is going to break in the kiln or not. I mean, it's the same with pottery, right? So yeah, it's an exercise in letting go and not being too attached to outcomes, for sure. I
Ah,
love that though. Things break. Things
they
break.
do. They do. And we can't be too precious about it.
Mm,
And I loved
mm,
that sentiment. So,
it's beautiful.
yeah.
I love it. Mm.
So, the first place I met you, or not the first place, the only place I met you was back when I was doing my own yoga teacher training. And you came and you taught a Kundalini class. And it absolutely is one of the things that changed my life and set me on a
Mm.
different course. Because the workshop that you did, how you taught it, and then the practice that we did, I remember it became a complete out of body experience. And I
Mm.
just remember feeling completely in the flow of whatever that cosmic energy is, the Kundalini energy that you're supposed to tap into. And I remember I got to the end of that class and I looked around me and I was like, did everyone feel that? Because that was something, right? And I don't think everyone felt it, but I am so grateful that I did. So
Mm.
I would love for you to share a little bit. So first of all, thank you.
Mm.
And I would love for you to share a little bit about like what is Kundalini? What is that energy that we can tap into? I know you do so much more than that now, but that's how I met you, and that is like kind of the source of a lot of the work that I see you doing. So,
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful experience. Excuse me. Thank you for sharing that. That's
yeah.
exquisite. And yeah, I mean, that is the Kundalini energy, that creative flow state energy that you're talking about is what underlies all of my work and really my life. And so, yeah, even though the outer kind of external shape of my work has shifted, that has totally remained the same. And so the way I look at it is the Kundalini energy, and there's two different energies, really. We talk
Mhm.
about this main Kundalini energy that rises up from below. It's the creative life force energy, and it's really that energy that makes the flowers bloom, that makes the stars spin in the sky. It is the creative life force, right? And so it's that impetus to make life. So it is related to sexuality in that way. And it's a creative impulse. And when we're in it, we're in a flow state. And there's so many things I could say about it, but the goal that I have in classes and the work that I do is to create the right conditions for that naturally to rise, because I believe it is our natural state. It's not something to achieve. It's not something to be. We don't have to repent and prove ourselves and become worthy of it or anything like that. This is an innate birthright of all human beings, and it is accessible to all human beings. And so I think of it like creating the right conditions for a rose to bloom. And so, right, you can't force a rose to bloom. You give it the right conditions. You give it the right soil. You give it fertilizer, the sunlight, water. I mean, maybe you sing to it a little or something, say sweet words, and it blooms, hopefully. And so that to me is like the proper way to invoke the Kundalini energy. And one of my teachers told me many years ago, treat Kundalini as like a queen. She'll come when she wants, and you can't force it. So, yeah. And there's so many things more I could say about that, but I really do see it as such an essential thing to be awakening right now on the planet, because so many people feel disempowered or just disconnected from their power, from their light, from their magic. And it's so essential if we're wanting to create beauty in the world, to be doing it from this source that is limitless, right? There's no limit to what this energy can create in our lives, just for ourselves. This beautiful flow state you're talking about, of feeling connected and like, oh my God, something shifted. I mean, that's you. That isn't anything. I mean, of course, again, creating the right conditions, I did, but that's you. That was, and you're right, not everyone in the room experiences that, but that it's your energy. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the idea of limitless energy, limitless flow, I think is so hard. It still feels hard for me to wrap my head around, even if I've tapped into it or experienced it. And I think it's so opposite of what we're used to experiencing. Like everything has a limit. Everything, like there's only so much of, stuff to go around. And it's so funny because before I came out here, I was just reminding myself of, keep that abundant mindset and have that come from that place of abundance. And for me, it's work to remember abundance right now. I'm still in that place of a lot of scarcity. So how have you learned, how have you gotten to really stay connected and to tap into that idea of limitless flow, limitless abundance? How do you stay connected to it?
Yeah. Personally, I have a really regular prayer practice. I mean, not a single day goes by that I don't pray in the morning, even if it's just while I'm washing my face or something. I mean, usually it's much longer than that. But yeah, that is really important. I mean, connecting to that limitless nature of the soul, of the spirit, because the body's limited. We're going to die. This is going to fade to dust. And so certainly there are limits. There are limitations in our world in so many ways. And so there's another part of this that is working with the body, working with like the soma. What is the body saying? So we don't want to just bypass that and dissociate from the body, because that's no way to bring in abundance either. And so I think there's this, for myself, I found this kind of balance, this dance between connecting to those, I guess, like forces beyond me, the spirits, the guides, the angels, the angelic realm. That's been really big for me in the last year or so, the angelic realm. I didn't really grow up in that Christian sort of structure, I guess, like theology wise. But it's been so big. So that's been a big resource for me lately, and just bringing that in and then doing the work of my physical body to be able to hold the energy, because abundance is a big energy, and the nervous system has to be a worthy vessel for that. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Very well said. Yes, I love this so much. So I just needed to take a moment because it's something that is so present for me right now is holding so much more and increasing my capacity to hold, to hold, to hold, and to just be with these really big emotional states, big flow states. And it's like, even though I, like I'm a therapist in my, 9 to 5, whatever day life, and I hold that for other people, it's so hard to hold it for myself and to hold my own things. And it's the big work that I'm doing right now is increasing that capacity for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so much easier to see. I mean, I come across that all the time in my work. I mean, I work a lot with one-on-one. So that's most of my work these days. And I find that I'm always like, even just one step, it's not really ahead, right? But like, I'll use
Yeah.
that language just for the sake of it for now, of the people I'm working with. And so, yeah, and you have to be, if you're holding space for other people, which I think so many people are in so many ways. It doesn't just have to be in these kind of therapeutic settings, right? But
Yeah.
your family, your friends, etc. But yeah, to be able to widen and deepen that container, I think, is what it's about. And that's work. It's good work, but it's work.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Okay, so one of the areas where you are maybe like 14 steps ahead of at least where I currently am is in the realm of like sex and sexuality and pleasure, and being able, your capacity to really hold that and get into the flow of pleasure is so big. And it's still like, even saying that word, I still have a little bit of like, there's a part of me that's like, okay, that's a little uncomfortable to say the word pleasure. So
Yeah, it's good to name that.
yeah. And even the little nervous giggle, that's so cute. Oh, so sweet and so young.
We love that.
So can you speak to that a little bit? Whether it's your mindset on those things or how you teach or talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really, thank you for naming that, like discomfort, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I know a lot of folks that I work with have, shame or embarrassment or, guilt or whatever, like just naming pleasure, and just talking about it. So I think I just thank you for naming that, because it's important. Because I think we can just sort of shut down the conversation because it brings up discomfort or inadequacy sometimes too. Like, well, I'm not feeling that. What's wrong with me? So it's super important to name those things right off. But I see such a connection between the Kundalini, your capacity to hold energy, whether that's love, your creative output, your ability to hold a container for others. It's so linked. I mean, your ability to hold your own emotions, so linked to sexual energy and pleasure can mean so many things. It doesn't just have to be sexual pleasure. It can be, eating a ripe, juicy peach over a sink and just having a moment of universal bliss. Pleasure can be
Yes.
that, right? So there's I find the sexual pleasure and erotic energy, that aliveness energy, has been so dampened in everyone collectively because of, different religious structures, social structures, violence and abuse and trauma and various conditioning that we've experienced collectively and individually. It does just sort of shut down that ability to feel. And that's what pleasure is about. That's what that erotic energy is about, is being alive, being fully lit up, right? Because if we're not lit up, we're not going to have good sex. Like, we're not going to be fulfilled in that area. I mean, maybe in little ways, but it's not going to be sustained. We're not going to feel deeply, deeply satiated in the ways that we can. And this again is something that I think so many people feel like, again, inadequate, or they just don't even know where to start. And they think it's not possible for them, but it absolutely is. And this is, again, one of those things of increasing your capacity. I mean, pleasure, and especially in my work with women, I see this, is women have our bodies are wired for pleasure,
Yeah.
in so many ways. And so it's about increasing your capacity to hold that. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is too much pleasure. I don't deserve this. It's dangerous. It's wrong, whatever it is. And we shut it down. So it's working with those voices and allowing that life force to take up space in us, make us bright and alive.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So
Mm-hmm.
what would you say are maybe some starter methods, some starter tools that people could connect to if they're feeling disconnected from pleasure, in whether it's eating the peach or a piece of chocolate, or just like feeling the sand between your toes, like whatever it is that is just kind of that washes over that feeling of, I'm here in you. What are some ways that people can get started in having those practices?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of my favorite simple practices is just a five senses kind of experiment. So, having a five senses ritual. So having something to eat that you love, whether it's, that peach or chocolate, and essential oils or incense that you love, beautiful music that you like to listen to, maybe feathers, like stroking your skin, or you can just use your hands and just kind of gently stroke, your arm or your collarbones or something simple like that. And just going sense by sense, right? This really forces people to slow down, which a lot of people don't want to do, because it feels so elementary, but it's
Mhm.
so luscious what it can do. So, going sense by sense, and first smelling that scent and really letting yourself be immersed in the scent, slowing the breath way down
Mhm.
is really, really important as well. So breathing deeply and just feeling. Yeah, that's a beautiful place to start. I mean, and then if we take it a step further, really just feeling the body. So a simple body scan of, oh, what am I feeling in my body right now? What are my sensations? And just naming them, because that naming them out loud really does to help to create a link between what maybe we've stored away, what we're not wanting to feel, whether it's good or bad. Pleasure sometimes we
Mhm.
store away. So naming the sensation really helps to kind of bring more of your sensation online in your nervous system.
So I want to ask you about practices you do then, because that makes me think of, okay, so you said you have this morning prayer that you do, but I also wonder, for before you work either one-on-one with people or before you get your day started, and then maybe at the end, are there things that you do to kind of transition yourself to and from working with people, or to and from doing other people's work, so you can be back in yourself and in your own life?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so for me, my work has become so much of who I am. So I don't have, I mean, I do very simple rituals where I open the directions, the four
Mm.
directions, and then above and below, and right before I work with a client and right after, or before I teach, things like that. But my transition points are really in the morning and in the evening. And so what those look like, for me, I'm such a nature being
Yeah.
that so much of my practice is really centered around nature. I mean, I have to be outside at some point in the day to connect in the ways I need to get into my body. Just feeling my feet on the ground is so deeply sensual for me, of allowing just that life force energy to move through. So that's a way that I both refuel and release. And then that prayer, I mean, and well, I guess I'll rewind a moment and, connected with that nature practice, I do a lot of sexuality work as well to just stoke my own fire. So working with like Yoni egg or just like a simple breast massage or something to like nourish my energy again, either in the morning or at night, to kind of reset and come back home into my body and, slip into the dreamlands and commune with the other worlds. That is a really important piece. So nature, sexuality practices, and then the prayer, meditation and prayer. That's really important as well, just to continue to align and draw those energies in, connect to intuition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so working with the Yoni egg,
Mm.
I I will name that I hold a lot of fear around that, but I also think, it's something where it's like the curiosity is in me and there is some openness, but there's also a lot of fear. Can
Mm.
you explain that a little bit more? And maybe this is as much for me as for it probably is as much for me as anyone else, but I'm just like, ooh, that brings up some feelings. And
Mm.
so what is that practice? What does it look like? Is it safe? I think I have all those sorts of questions, and other people probably do too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I'm going to say I'm not a doctor, so I can't give medical advice.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of teachers that have had decades and decades and decades of experience with this. One of my main teachers, his name is Minka DeVos, and she is in her 60s and has been a practitioner for 40 years. So she's seen a lot and has really is a true like Taoist tantric priestess, holding that Taoist lineage. So shout out to her. And so the Yoni egg it is an ancient practice. This is thousands and thousands of years old. And I'm going to say it's a pretty advanced practice. So those like feelings of trepidation, that's really normal and natural. And that to me is listening to your body, listening to what your comfort zone is. But the Yoni egg is really meant to be similar to yoga, right? So we're working with different postures and exercises, and it's not, right? And yoga just isn't stretching, right? It's not just
Correct.
exercise. We
Yes.
know this now, right? It's so rich, so deep. There's meditation, there's ritual, there's so much in the yoga practice, right? And the Yoni egg's the same thing or a similar thing. There's so many meditative practices that go along with it, that energy practices to balance your energy. And so essentially it's a tool for women. It's a stone egg, usually jade is the traditional. There's also cultures in Central and South America that use obsidian. So it's a hard stone and it goes inside of your vagina. And there's all different kinds of practices. So this is, strengthening for the pelvic floor if you have a weak pelvic floor. And it ultimately, can really support, better orgasms, more strength, more even softness. I mean, this is something I want to speak about because there are things to make sure you're doing it in a safe way. There's a lot of people that are not doing it in a safe way. And so those are the physical benefits. I mean, there's so many beyond that too. It balances hormones because anytime we're working with sexual energy or the sexual organs, we're balancing hormone levels. This has been proven actually. And then in the emotional kind of energetic spiritual levels, the benefits are numerous as well. I mean, we're connecting with our root, we're connecting with our creative energy, with our pleasure, with our bodies. This
Yeah.
is like the sexual organs are an area where so many women hold so much shame and guilt and just feelings of not enough or too much or whatever it is. And so we really get a chance to work with that on such a deep level. And then as far as like safety, so, if you Google it, you'll see all kinds of articles about how terrible it is. So, take those with a grain of salt. You talk to your doctor if you're concerned. If you have an IUD, it's tricky. You can't use a string and things like that. But essentially, if you have pelvic floor weakness, that can be both, not strong enough pelvic floor muscles, but it can be too strong, too tight. So we don't, and this is what I say to people, we don't want tight. That's not the goal. We want strong and relaxed. So the right way to use the yoni, the right way, quote unquote, the safe way, is to be both strengthening and relaxing. So allowing us like a softness. I mean, this is true for any workout, right? I mean, we don't want to be working our biceps out so much that we can't, whatever, turn our head or something. I mean, there's a suppleness that we want as well. So yeah. So much more I could say about the yoni egg. This is one of my favorite topics. I'll stop there for now.
Okay, we'll stay there for a couple minutes because deep personal share. We'll see if I keep me saying this or not, but I have done a little bit of pelvic floor therapy, and the problem is that I am not relaxed. I do not know how to relax my pelvic floor. And, sexual abuse, whatever, just shame, all of that stuff being held there. I know it. I know it's really tied to trauma and past experiences, but my work is in relaxing. And so I was kind of wondering, this question in the back of my mind is like, oh, would that help someone like me? And you just spoke to it. And I think learning to relax. So I'll have to do that research on my own, but I just wanted to note that, yes, I totally have had that experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, can I say something? Is it okay if I share something about that?
Absolutely. Share it away.
Okay.
And again, I'll decide we can decide whether or not it stays.
Absolutely. It's up to you. I mean, in that situation, because that is honestly more common than not. I mean, unless a woman has had many children, vaginal births and things, that's really common to have that tension. And so then in that situation, I don't recommend yoni egg practice, actually. I recommend de-armoring. So the use of a wand and things like that to actually use, different pressure points that allow you to just breathe into those parts of your body and sound. And it's very simple and it's extremely powerful. But that has to be weighted into, because that's deep. I mean, it's inside your body, right? I mean, it's so, so intimate and so, so tender. And so that I like to work with a lot of other practices leading up to that. We don't just dive right in, right? It's just like making love. You can't just dive right in. You have to warm everything up. Everything's got to be juicy. You have to feel safe, right? You have to have the container to feel what you feel arise. So, and this is, I think, again, one of the most important things is like setting that container so that when you do go into those spaces where things are held, that you've got it, you've got yourself, or someone's got you, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for speaking to that and taking such care with those practices, because it isn't a one size fits all. And I think when somebody sees an article on Goop or, hears about it in some of these areas, and it's like, oh yeah, go and get this egg and shove it up inside of you. And it's so much more complex than that. And I feel a lot of relief for myself in having this conversation and hearing like, okay, maybe that isn't the next first step for someone like me who has that experience of being more tension rather than relax.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got to move at your pace. We all do.
Yeah. We do. What is your favorite thing to talk about? Like, what is your favorite thing to share with people or to get into, whether it's working with someone or just in casual conversation?
Oh, so okay. Yeah. I'm a lover of the shadows. So I love, and I think we kind of just went into this a little bit. I love to feel the places where someone has never been able to put words to or has never felt safe enough to put words to, and something they thought was like so broken beyond repair, that then when there's light and love shown upon it, it's like, oh, it's not that big a deal. Oh, okay. Oh, it's actually a source of power. Great. That is one of my favorite spaces to go into. I love, and that I think is part of why I like sexuality work, is because it's such a shadowy part of our consciousness and lives. And yeah, so I love talking about the things that make people uncomfortable and making it actually feel okay. You know, like there is a safe place and it's actually really rewarding. It doesn't mean you have to broadcast it to everyone, but like at least one other person that can hold these things with you, or, you know, witness you. That's one of my favorite spaces to go. I find that men and women, I'm working with a lot more men these days, and it's really exquisite to watch. I've seen women be doing so much work lately on themselves, you know, deep work, and it's really impressive, and just it bursts my heart open to see men kind of, you know, doing the same work in a different way, you know, and every human is different. It's not necessarily a binary thing, but I really like, I have a deep interest right now in men and what their unique struggles are, because they're different and similar in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for men to be witnessed and held and in the totality of who they are and in their full emotional spectrum and in all their pain, to be held by women in that, let alone other men, would be great too. But really to have a woman like witness that is so powerful for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, women we're socialized to hold that container. We're just more socialized emotionally to attune to emotions and, you know, be compassionate, and that's sort of like in men in the past anyhow. Yeah, not super encouraged in men. So I think a female space or a feminine space is more safe for them to go into that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What attracts you to the shadow? Like, is that something that you really had to work on being comfortable with your own shadow? Or did you just kind of see that pain in people and you were like, okay, I can do this. This is my work.
Yeah, I was born that way. So
Mm.
it's through experience too. I had a lot of trauma early on, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, all kinds of things. And then, you know, just in my early life, and then as well kind of intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
And then collective, of course. And so I really, and felt it really heavily. I mean, I went through a period early in life of depression, anxiety, addiction, just really, really, really deeply struggling. So the shadow has just never been something I could avoid. I would have liked to, maybe, but that isn't what has happened to this life. So it's just been something that I've had to get comfortable with. It's been forced, for sure. Deeply grateful for that, because I do believe, and I have found in my own life, that that shadow holds treasures beyond our wildest dreams. And this is something I deeply, deeply and know in my bones to be true, that those of us that have been through darkness and have experienced darkness have a deeper capacity for power and magic. I think if we haven't experienced a lot of shadowy things and pain and suffering, we haven't had to, you know, we haven't had to rise to the occasion. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different, you know, different path, a different life. So yeah, it's just always been something I've had to negotiate in myself. And you know, that is how a lot of my work came about. I didn't really want to be a yoga teacher. I didn't want to be a healer of any kind. I was actually extremely shy when I was a kid. People would ask my mother if I was mute. And it's just been through, you know, my journey that it's like, oh, this is actually a big reason I'm on the planet, is I have experienced this. It's not only easy for me to hold space for others in that place, but I love it. It brings me deep, deep joy and just energy, vitality.
Incredible. All right. Well, you've already kind of talked about your teacher, so I don't even need to ask you about that. So I should probably just close with asking, how would you like people to find you? How would you like people, if at all, to seek you out to potentially work with you?
Yeah, I'm around. I'm out there on the internet. NicoleNardone.com, NicoleNardone. And I have all my resources there. The main way I am loving working with people right now is one-on-one. That container is just so deep, so rich. There's so much magic happening there. I'm really devoted to that at the moment. But if that's not accessible to everyone, I also have, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many now, maybe 10 courses online that you can kind of look through, anything from Yoni eggs to a couples work to just really basic kind of entry level introductory. It's called Embodied Ecstasy, this like 4-week course that I offer. So there's all kinds of ways to access my work in that way. And I'm on Instagram and YouTube as well. I've got a ton of free content on YouTube with different meditations and things, and little videos and little tastes of the things that I spoke about today.
Yes, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly would send people to your YouTube to check out some of those and just get to know like the flavor of how you work, because I know I still dip my toe into those practices from time to time, and they're really beneficial. So thank you for joining me today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly. This was such a pleasure to be with you and have this conversation.
Thank you for being part of the Happy Rebel podcast community. Stay connected with us on Instagram at Happy Rebel. If you've enjoyed our episodes, please consider rating, liking, and reviewing the podcast. It truly does help us grow. Until next time, this is Kelly Street. Remember, embrace the dark and the light.